Joining us now, she is the head coach of the Stanford Cardinal, fresh off the Women's College World Series appearance last season. And of course, she played at Stanford, knows a thing or two, has now been to the World Series as a player and a coach. Or speak of a good friend, Jessica Allister, joining us and in the circle. That's a nice extra title you've added.
That is a nice extra title. I appreciate that.
I obviously last year 47 wins. You get to the Women's College World Series within a couple of wins of the national championship. Now that you had an off season to reflect on last year, what comes to your mind when you thought about think back to last year?
Oh man. Well, I guess I haven't thought about it much recently, so I got to go back in the vault. But it was a magical season. It was a wonderful run with just a group of exceptional young women, and to see Emily Schultz, Taylor Gindelsberger, and Emily Young finish out their Stanford careers, at the Women's College World Series, I think is something that I will remember for a very long time. It was special.
So my 18th season covering softball, and your run to the World Series was one of my favorite stories ever. And I mean that because you know this, because I asked you over and over while you were in Oklahoma City about the alums being there. Jessica Mendoza broadcasting it. Ramona Shelburne literally left the finals, came to your game, and flew back. And with her responsibilities, with her work at ESPN, among the other alums. And, obviously at the time, you're focused about the next game and your team and everything. But now that you have some time to reflect, do you realize how special that was to not only for your team, but for you, and you're sharing that with your teammates and your alums?
Absolutely. It's why you do all of it, right? If you operate in a vacuum, what's the point? And that can go on a couple different levels. That means within your team, the successes are sweet because you get to share them with your favorite people. And then outside of your team, and whatever that looks like, all of those different circles as they go. So to have all of that support from the women who have worn the uniform was appreciated, and felt very, very deeply. On our day off, Coach Nyberg and I went out and had brunch with a bunch of the alumni that were in town, and it was amazing, just to see how excited they were to have Stanford softball back in Oklahoma, and how proud they were. It was a great experience.
Was that, I mean, you mentioned you spent time with them, you brunched with them, so you were able to take a moment at least to take it all in. Like, do you allow yourself? I know as a coach, you're thinking about the next play, the next game, but did you allow yourself for a moment to take it all in? Because it's not easy getting there, as you know.
No, it's really, really hard. Yeah, I think it would be a mistake not to, and that goes back to what we were saying before. Like, if you don't take a moment to take it all in and appreciate it, what are we doing here? I would say though that, I don't know if it's my greatest strength or greatest weakness. I am very much like next thing. I move on pretty quickly. But that day off and just having that opportunity to really, take a breath. And then walking into the stadium the first day, and just, our women playing incredibly well on the biggest stage. We weren't scared. We weren't timid. We just went for it. And I think that's probably my proudest moment from it all. When you're there for the first time, in a long time for the program, and the first time ever for any of the women on the roster, to show up and not be scared, and to just play free and go for it. I mean, that's all you can ask for as a coach. And I was really proud of them.
How were you able to get your players to play free in a biggest stage, which is not easy? Not everybody can pull that off. It'd be natural as a human being to be nervous, anxious. There's more eyeballs, more cameras. How were you able to get your players to play at their best at the biggest stage?
Yeah, I think it started in the postseason. I think it started in our comeback win in the Pac-12 tournament against Oregon. We went down twice, came back twice, and then really, putting together a great regional at home against Florida and building a lot of confidence there, and then going to Duke and building more confidence. I think we were just operating in a space where we were really confident, and thought that we could compete with anybody in the country. And I alluded to this a little bit at the end of the season, but I think that's what the Pac-12 does for you. You're facing the best players in the country every single year, and you're not facing anybody better when you get to the end. So I think just the schedule that we put together, I think we finished the season with the number one strength of schedule. Like, that was intentional. And just nothing had been easy all year. It had been really, really hard. So all of a sudden stepping foot in Oklahoma City, like that hard didn't feel any different. It just felt exciting. And I think they did a good job of recognizing the opportunity and really working to enjoy it.
You've played in the World Series. Now you've coached in the World Series. Did it feel any different? Was it the same? Like, how do you compare the two experiences? Because not many can say they've played and coached in the World Series like you have now.
Yeah, I don't even know that I could compare them. One, it was a long time ago that I played. And we trust our memories kind of. But it definitely wasn't the spectacle that it is now. And I use that term endearingly, just the electricity in that stadium and the atmosphere in Bricktown surrounding it, and just, the way Oklahoma City opens its arms to softball that first week in June. That's special. And getting to be a part of that, and our young women getting to experience that. It was more than I remembered and more than I could have imagined.
For you, the staff, and the returners, what did you want them to take from that experience to apply to this year moving forward?
I think it would be a mistake not to gain confidence. But at the same time, I want us to be our own team. So I think we try not to really talk about that all that much. Last year was last year and it was wonderful. This is a different team, and we have a lot of pieces, really important pieces that are the same, and a lot of firepower coming back, which we should feel really confident about. But we're a different team and it's a different year. So I think our returners to a T, I think, getting a little bit of a taste of that, you want back. And I'd be mistaken not to think that drives them a little bit. But we've thought for a while that we could compete on that stage. So I would say that this year, we're focused on this team, and with the added confidence that, we know we can compete at that level. And, every day working to put in the work to get back there.
You told me when you took over this program, this was the level you expected to get Stanford back to this level. And you were not even, you didn't even were, there was no doubt in your mind you would get it back to this level. What went through your mind when you clinched it in Durham, which was an early morning game, East Coast time, which is a whole other story I'm not going to get to, but early morning, you clinched that spot and you realized you were going to the World Series, and it built this program back to the point where you're going to OKC.
It was awesome. But I don't think that was the main focal point. In that moment, it was just seeing how excited the young women on the team were, and just the way they celebrated together, and like the sheer joy on their faces. So I think later on it probably hit me, bringing Stanford back to the World Series. But in that moment, it was about our team. And it was about, those fifth-year seniors who believed in the program and came back. And, the first recruiting class, when we didn't have much to sell outside of you could come here and get a world-class education and the best athletics department in the country, but we weren't the best softball team in the country, and we weren't close. And they just latched onto a belief. And then to see them, 5 years later playing their last game in Oklahoma, I mean, it was about that. So I think the Stanford piece hit me later on, but you don't walk around these facilities and not believe that you can compete for championships, because you're seeing people to your left and right in the hallway every day that are doing it. So it's always the goal.
And you gained a lot of fans on the outside, like people that didn't go to Stanford really enjoyed how they watched your team play, especially in the biggest stage. I don't know, did you notice that? Were you able to pick up on that, on the fact that you were getting a lot of casual fans that were Stanford fans because they really enjoyed watching your team play?
Yeah, somebody told me I think our gear sold out, which is awesome. Like, I love that. And I think it's a testament just to the way our team plays. They care about one another. They play for one another. We're dynamic and athletic, and I think when you can play with that competitiveness and that joy and that like true belief that you're fighting for your teammates and that togetherness, that's special. And then, obviously Nyjah was that electric, and how can you not, get excited to watch her compete at that level on that stage, and the defense behind her, and just, competitive at bats, and, Sydney Steele and Kylie, I'm just, yeah, over and over. I thought we were just competitive and really together. And I think that draws people in.
How do you then get a bunch of 18 to 20 through 23-year-olds who've probably been patted on the back all off season, all fall, how great they are, how successful, congratulations, and all that. How do you get them to refocus and be motivated for this season and put all that in the behind, which is not easy as human beings. You get naturally feel good about it when people pat you in the back. How do you stay grounded and now move on to this season and, accomplish more goals?
Yeah, it's the right question, but for the wrong reasons. I think the bigger challenge that we have is making sure that we stay focused on just ourselves and being as good as we can be, and we just need to be ourselves. And I think we have a group of young women who are never going to take their foot off the gas. They have high expectations for themselves. They have very high standards. That's how you end up where they are. So I think the bigger piece is reminding them that, we can't win anything today, but we can just really work to be as good as we possibly can be. So just staying present, staying focused, and recognizing that all we got to be is ourselves, and not allowing expectations, and outside noise to make the task heavier than it needs to be.
Does the fact they're students in Stanford, one of the best universities out there academically, and the challenges that come with that, does that help in that regard as well? That, from an academic standpoint, you can't take anything for granted because every course is challenging, and it broadens your for the future, but you can't take a moment off and you stay grounded as a student. I would imagine that also helps from an athletic standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. But it goes back to our greatest strengths or our greatest weaknesses. So there's a reason that, you get to this level in the classroom and on the field. We just got to make sure that we keep that as a strength and don't allow it to get to the point where, it's too much and not enjoyable. And there's just too much around it. So we've got this wonderful opportunity to compete for the best university in the world and wear the Stanford jersey for 4 years. And you just work to enjoy every second of it.
You've got 3 full-time assistants. You've added Sarah now as an assistant who you got to coach up in Minnesota. Talk about the impact now, having 3 full-time assistants and obviously bringing Sarah on board.
That's great. I think I have the best coaching staff in the country. Jessica Merchant and Tori Nyberg are just exceptional at what they do. And there's not a day that goes by where I fail to recognize how lucky I am to work beside just phenomenal women who are, really, really, really good at their jobs. And then adding in Sarah has been awesome. I think that it's exciting to see her, get her coaching feet going. And when we were chatting through kind of what this role might look like and whether or not it's something that she really thought she'd be interested in. And she finally said, you know what, coach, I think I want to do it. I think I want to coach, it's awesome. And I think she's going to be an exceptional coach. So to see her, jump in and start to leave her impact on the program and, really be able to relate to a lot of things that our student athletes are going through. She's been a great addition.
When did she want, I didn't realize that she wanted to get that bug to go coaching. Is that something you knew when you coached her in Minnesota, or is this a late kind of development?
I think it's a late development.
Wow.
I think she's and she hasn't hung up the cleats yet. She competed for Canada this summer, and that's not off the table moving forward. So she's still around the game. But I think as she just finished her college career and went out into the real world a little bit as she continued to play, and just I think sometimes the further you get from the collegiate game, the more you realize how much you love the collegiate game and how special college athletics really are. So I think it's a bug that probably was always in the back of her mind, but started to work towards the front of her mind. And we're really fortunate that she's here.
Yeah, that's incredible to add her to the boost and obviously help out with your pitching staff, which obviously gets a lot of attention. You mentioned earlier, Najee Kennedy gets, of course, a lot of attention, but you've got Reagan Krause back. Just talk about your pitching staff. Obviously, you don't have Elena Vaughter on the staff, but Krause, I remember we talked last year. I mean, she easily could have pitched in those big games too. You had as much confidence if you needed her, so I'm sure she's motivated. Just talk about your staff as a whole.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about college athletics, and I say this often and people think I'm crazy, is that people graduate. I think it's a good thing and it opens up our opportunities for others. So I'm excited for Reagan to have this opportunity. And she's ready. She's had some really huge successes for us and pitched in some huge moments in her first 3 years, but probably hasn't gotten the ball as much as she possibly could have just because of the staff that we've had around her. There's no reason that she couldn't get more innings last year. Outside of innings were just hard to come by, and that's a good thing for the program. But I think, it's exciting for her for this door to have been opened. So I know she's ready. We have nothing but confidence in her. I think she's throwing as well now as I've ever seen her throw. I think it's a testament to Reagan as well. I think a lot of pitchers of her caliber, who kind of were put in the position that she was put in last year, wouldn't have had the same attitude that she had, as far as really just caring most about the success of the team. And coach, I'm going to be ready when you need me to be ready. And in the meantime, like, I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader I possibly can be for my teammates. And that never wavered for Reagan. And, that can be hard. She's good and everybody wants to be on the field. But she's just an exceptional leader, an exceptional woman. And I'm excited for the country to get a glimpse of what she can do this year. And then behind her, Kylie Chung, again, she could have gotten more innings. And I think on a lot of staff would have gotten a lot more innings. So we're excited to get her out there this year. And then Alyssa Houston is our freshman. And she is doing a wonderful job, continues to get better every week with Coach Nyberg. And she's going to be a big piece of what we do too. So see a lot of new faces, but I still believe that pitching will be a strength for us.
And still deep, and that's something you've always believed in, and Coach Nyberg had believed in throughout. You're not going to lean on one arm. Like, Najee gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so, but she doesn't have to carry the load. Is that something you remind her of as well? Does she understand? I mean, she knows that from last year, learning there from the staff.
Yeah, Coach Nyberg does a great job of developing a staff, and they talk about that a lot. We're going to be a staff, and we are going to support one another and complement one another and help one another. So yeah, that's a big piece of what they talk about in the bullpen. And then also it's just really important for success. You want to make sure that you're fresh enough to be throwing your best at the end of the year. And you want to make sure that, on days where you need to get picked up, you can get picked up, and we can mix and match. And, offenses are good. So the more looks we can give people, the better. But it's a positive for everybody when you can have a deep staff. And yeah, I'd say on the recruiting trail, we always start and end with pitching. That's the most important thing that we do. And in this game, if you don't have pitching, you don't have much. So it's always going to be a priority for us.
You told me about Najee, what she was capable of doing. All right, that's one thing. But to see her accomplish what she accomplished last year as a freshman, how much of that surprised you as far as what she was able to accomplish? I know you felt she could do it, but to do it that quick.
Yeah, I mean, you never expect anybody to put together the freshman campaign that Nyjah put together. But at the same time, I'm not going to say I'm surprised. Like, that's a real fine line to walk, right? And I can hold both those thoughts in my mind. But I think just her preparedness and competitive nature, and just her desire to be on the field and to compete. Give me the ball against anybody. I don't care who it is. That's special. And to see her, blossom at the end of the year, and have a great regular season, have some tough injuries that probably kept her out a little bit longer than she would have liked, but for it to pay off, and to be at the top of her game when it mattered most. She was electric.
It's a good word, electric. And yet I would imagine coming this fall motivated even more, right? Just because you mentioned she dealt with some injuries, so she dealt with some adversity, and she got a taste of what the World Series was like, and I would imagine wants to get there. What has her fall been like?
Yeah, there's never been a motivational issue with Nyjah. I mean, she's going to do the work, and she is determined to be better every day. That's a non-issue. I think the key with her is continuing to work on what we worked on last year, is making sure that we're really, really smart in our preparation so that we're peaking at the right time. And throwing our best game at the end of May and early June. So Coach Nyberg does a lot with like cadence throughout the year and pitch counts and rest, and our athletic trainer and strength and conditioning. Like, they're really good at it. So just making sure that Nyjah wants to improve and wants to be better, and wants to be better this year than she was last year. So making sure that we can temper that also with let's also really manage your load to make sure that we're in a good space. That's been, what we've worked on from the fall coming into January. But I'll take an athlete like that any single day, and she's preparing, and she's ready.
and all your pitchers benefit from having a Gold Glove catcher.
Yeah.
And Allie Kenichi, what does that mean to you as somebody who played the catcher position to see what Allie's accomplished to get a Gold Glove award, and obviously shows her value to your team from not just obviously what she does behind the plate, but I'm assuming also help the pitchers.
Yeah, I think if you can have a shutdown catcher, it makes a difference, for our pitchers to have the confidence, to throw the ball wherever they need to throw the ball with her receiving, and then also just to shut down the running game. We all know if singles turn into doubles, like that's all of a sudden how people can score runs pretty quickly. And from the beginning of the year, she just did a phenomenal job of shutting down the running game. With that also comes, great middle infield. So Emily Young and River Mailer did an exceptional job on steal covers, and that's a piece of it too. But just taking away, the ability for people to steal bases makes it really hard for people to score, especially when you keep the ball in the park. And yeah, it was fun to watch, and she had a great year, and excited to have her back there again.
You mentioned Mailer; she had a great year in her start. Talk about her growth, and as well as some of the growth you've seen from the other returners back this year.
Yeah, River, we're thrilled to have her back, obviously, and it's funny. A couple of them, you forget they're just sophomores. So when you think of like the experiences that River and Nyjah and Taryn all have, like you forget they're just sophomores. You think that they're so much older. But River's played shortstop her whole life and moved over to second base for us last year because Emily Young, in her 5th year, obviously has the shortstop position locked down, and just a phenomenal middle infield. And we're excited now to move River over to shortstop. So she got off to a really hot start last year. I think learned a lot down the stretch that she's going to utilize this year coming in, and really got after it this summer, both physically and like just kind of thinking about when she's at her best and what that looks like, and what the preparation looks like, and what the mental approach looks like. And she's a special ball player, and I think that we haven't seen her best yet. So excited to see the year she puts together.
You added Taryn Kern to your team this year. What has she been like blending in, and what she brings to the table?
Taryn is wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful. And I say that as, a human being and a person first. She just has a real warmth about her, and just is so just fun and easy to be around. She, just connects with everybody. She's interested in other people. She's curious. She's kind. She's just been a wonderful addition to the clubhouse. And then obviously a wonderful addition to the roster as well. And excited about the power that she brings to the middle of the order, excited about the defense that she brings to second base. She's fits in very well as far as the puzzle and as we're trying to put it all together. And it's been a really great transition, and we're just thrilled to have her.
You've also got, I believe, 4 freshmen on the roster. How do they blend in with this veteran group with a lot of returners? But every year you've always had a freshman or two, obviously, that have stepped in and contributed in many aspects. How do you feel about this freshman class?
I feel great about this freshman class. I think they all add a little bit here and there. I think there's a good chance you're going to see Jade Berry playing third base. And I've just been impressed with her poise and her maturity. I forget she's a freshman. And just, she's playing lockdown defense and swings a great left-handed bat. So excited about her addition to the infield. Ava Gall's another freshman. She's a lefty first baseman catcher who has really impressed me offensively thus far, and excited to see what she looks like. And then Alyssa Houston, you're going to see her swing the bat and pitch, like we talked about a little bit earlier in the circle. So I think she'll get a fair amount of time on both of those things, and then rounded out by Kylie Buckley, just a phenomenal athlete out of Boston, Massachusetts, and getting better every single day that she steps on the field. So it's a good group. They showed up. They haven't been overwhelmed. They haven't really been sped up. Like they've showed up ready. And part of our team is just taking care of one another in the clubhouse and making sure that the freshmen have what they need, and that the upperclassmen really are there to take care of them. And I've been impressed with the way that the team's welcomed him in and made them feel comfortable. And excited to get him in the fold.
That's pretty impressive. Two-way right off the bat as a freshman. You really think that? Where do you see her playing other positions? More of a DP role when she doesn't pitch?
I think she'll do a couple of things. I think she'll play a little bit of first base. I think she'll DP here and there. And I think she'll hit when she pitches. So I think that we've got a couple different people in that mold that will hit when they pitch. And then depending on who's pitching, might depend on who's the DP. And then a couple outfield positions and probably first base that are a little unsettled and are probably going to be moving around at the beginning of the year to figure out what works best. So I think you'll see her a lot of different places.
I know you told me the goal was to have every year, by the time you got it where you want it to be, to have versatility and depth and athleticism on your roster. Is that where you're at right now with this roster?
Well, I mean, I think that's always the goal for every coach on every roster. But yeah, I like our depth right now. I think that we've got some real battles going on for some different positions, and that's a testament to the team, and it's a good thing. And we've got different players that can play different positions, and I think we're going to look a little bit different than last year. I think last year maybe we were a little bit more of a speed game. I think this year we're going to have a little bit more power, and hopefully, the goal is to be able to meld those two together.
Of course, Jessica Merchant, I want to ask her because she's got my favorite title of any coach that has, the Jessica Mendoza Associate Head Softball Coach. Tell me that's tell me about that title, because that's a unique how that came about, and obviously what Jessica brings to your program. Both Merchant and obviously Mendoza obviously helps, but Merchant in particular. But that's a good title to have. I like that.
Yeah, it's an endowed position. Stanford's got a lot of endowed positions and just wonderful philanthropic donors who really, are the engine that makes this place run. And we're fortunate to have that. And that was an anonymous donor, actually, who didn't want their own name associated and chose Mendoza's name. So that's how that one came about. But yeah, I mean, Jessica Merchant, I can't say enough about her. I think she's just she's one of the best coaches in the country. Every year I think, all right, this is the year I'm going to lose her. And somehow she's still here. And I couldn't be more happy. And it's not from lack of opportunities. But she is an excellent recruiter. She's an excellent relationship builder. She's an excellent technician of the game. She's just really, really, really good at her job. And on top of that, she is just a wonderful person to work with every single day. She's steady and dependable. And she's great.
She's tremendous. And of course, it'd be anonymous would want to name Mendoza. Mendoza has a lot of fans. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, go figure. That makes a ton of sense. Let me ask you, obviously, you're hosting the Pac-12 tournament this year.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What does that mean for you? And obviously the facility standpoint of it, because you kind of teased that a little bit in Oklahoma City, where you're at with the facilities and what it means to host this conference tournament.
Yeah, well, we're thrilled to host the conference tournament. We're sad that it'll be the last softball event of the Pac-12 era, which is just unfortunate. But, happy to be hosting it. Excited to welcome, 9 phenomenal teams to our university and to our stadium, and to be able to have that opportunity for our community to come out and just watch some wonderful ball to begin the postseason. Just really should be a great weekend of softball on the farm, and we're happy about that. The stadium's a go. Yeah, we're breaking ground as soon as this season's over. It's going to be gorgeous. And I like you said, I talked about this a little bit at the end of the World Series, but we've just got an administration right now who is all in on softball, and really has kind of gotten a sense for what the landscape looks like, and the excitement surrounding the sport. And it's important to have people behind you that support what you're doing, and we're really, really thankful that we have that support.
So you're hitting the dirt after the season. What's the timeline by the time it'll be ready? And how involved are you as far as having say on certain matters when it comes to the new stadium?
Really involved. I spend a lot of my time figuring all of those things out. The timeline right now, like we're working through it all. And I think the best analogy I've heard, someone once said, it's like remodeling your kitchen. It's going to suck for a little bit and then it's going to be worth it. So it's going to be a little bit, inconvenient for a period of time, but, just what it's going to do for Stanford softball moving forward, for generations. It's just built a all-inclusive stadium that, gives our young women just, a place where they can study and train and get their treatment and hang out and just really have a hub to themselves, and fans just all the amenities that they can imagine, and more seats, which we've been selling out our Pac-12 games for a while now. So it's about time to get more seats in that stadium. So it's going to be beautiful.
It's good to have demand, big demand. And I just spent 6 months doing a brand new kitchen, so I understand about the
So
uncomfortable. I know very well. That hit home, Coach, when you mentioned that. I know that very well. You hosted a regional last year, too, which helped, I'm sure, from that. How important is it to have those renovation, the new stadium, to host postseason, host conference tournaments down the road, etc., to have that? And you mentioned it, the demand is there for the interest is popular. The sport's growing. All of it. Now it's become an event where people want to take their families to watch softball.
Yeah. It's huge, and I think our stadium right now is beautiful. And I think as far as playing surface and training amenities like cages, bullpens, all those types of things, like our stadium's as good as anybody's in the country right now. And what the new stadium is going to do is just the fan amenities and then the amenities for the players off the field. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that we're not thankful for what we have right now. And I still think it's one of the best stadiums in the country as it sits. But yeah, it's going to be great. And just the better experience that you can give fans, like the more likely they are to come back, and the more fans that you can bring to the games, the better. And I think you just see that in general, across women's sports right now. It's real cliche, but if you build it, they will come. And I think just giving our young women the stage to compete at the highest level is awesome.
Yeah, Jenna Becerra sends me text messages with photos of the phys. I have a feeling that's more to come down the road to rub it in. I get it. I totally get it. You mentioned this isn't the last year of the Pac-12, which obviously is a big story, college athletics this year. How do you did you react? Were you shocked? Were you now you're moving to the ACC next year on all that? Is it even hit you? Is it going to hit you maybe after the season?
Yeah, I think I was shocked when UCLA and USC left. That was
Sure.
a shocking day. I think since then, I think if you're all that shocked by anything that happens in college athletics, you're not really paying attention. So I wouldn't say shocked. Did I imagine a world in which there's no Pac-12? I did not. But this is where we sit. And if we've all learned anything in the last 3 years, it's that you better be flexible and you better figure it out no matter what you got. And we're thrilled that the ACC, opened their arms and welcomed us in. It's an excellent softball conference. And I think when you look at the top of the conference, with Florida State and Clemson and Duke and Virginia Tech, and Notre Dame, and then you add in us and Cal. I think the strength of the conference is exciting. And kind of the new rivalries, that's fun too. And get to see some different parts of the country. And then we recruit on a national landscape. So we've got players from all over the country. So there's some benefits there as well, that we're going to be close to some players' hometowns, and make it a little bit easier for their families to get out and watch us. And that's not a bad thing. So, all in all, right now, after this year, if you want to play high level softball, you're not playing it on the West Coast. You're gonna have to travel. And while if I had a magic wand, I would keep the Pac-12. That's not where we're at. So we're happy to be in the ACC and focusing on the good that'll come out of it.
How will that affect your non-conference scheduling moving forward? This year, for example, you got 20 games against teams that played in the top 25, were in the top 25
Who
RPI.
made that schedule?
I don't know, Coach. You better figure out who's getting you in that deep of a hole. So it's a challenging schedule, like you mentioned, just like last year. How much of that will be affected based on this conference change next year moving forward? Because coaches obviously always plan scheduling a year in advance. So how will that impact your schedule moving forward?
Yeah, we got to figure all of that out. And I would be lying if I said I know exactly what that's going to look like. I think it's probably going to be we're going to give it our best shot the first year and then figure out what went well and what needs to change and kind of navigate through it. I would say right now at the beginning of the year, we travel a fair amount. And a lot of that is just trying to get to the East Coast for a lot of our families that are on that side of the country, knowing that we're going to stay on the West Coast during conference play. And my assumption is that we'll just flip flop those schedules, so now I don't see us really traveling at the beginning of the year. And, we're fortunate that we have great weather. So, we can host in February and stay here given the demands of the travel. I think if, we weren't able to do that and we had to travel at the beginning of the year, that's a whole nother animal to tackle, but we're fortunate that we don't have to do that. So I think we'll stay home for most of the preseason. And, if we do travel, it'll be regional travel. And then have our part where we travel across the country in the conference play. So in my mind, it just flip-flops. When I first heard the news, I'd be lying if I didn't think, how in the world is this going to work? But kind of as I thought through it, I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as I initially thought. And then, the beautiful thing about being at Stanford is that I can say with the utmost confidence that Stanford is committed to providing its student athletes the opportunity to compete for championships and get a great education. And they're not going to sacrifice either side. So all the decisions that are being made, the resources that are being put into athletics to make this work are with that in mind. And I can rest easy knowing that there's no chance that Stanford's going to waver on either of those two fronts.
We had Caitlin Lowe on the show. She mentioned about, possibly playing Pac-12 teams like your team moving forward as non-conference. Is that something you foresee as well, as playing some of the Pac-12 teams, as non-conference games down the road?
I would assume as much. I think we just don't have that many teams on the West Coast, and Power 5 teams on the West Coast. So I think that now that, we won't be conference foes with a fair amount of them, I think you'll probably see a lot of games there. But again, we're just all trying to figure out what that looks like and what everyone's different schedules look like. And I think it's going to be it's going to change a lot year to year as we try to figure out what cadence works best.
Well, one of the things that I really admire about you since I've gotten to see you and gotten to know you is you don't let a lot of stuff that would let us, regular human beings get to you. Like, you dealt with a global pandemic where you couldn't practice till literally February with a team, and you still got them to an NCAA tournament. You've dealt with not being able to host a regional like you did back in Minnesota. You've dealt with a lot of different stuff, but you never let it phase you or get to you. You just move on to the next step. Where does that come from? How are you able to put all of that and say, all right, there's nothing we can do about it, so let's just get to work and do what we can control? How do you do that? Because that's not easy to just let things go or, not let that get to you.
Well, I think that's my job. One of the things we talk about as a team is the definition of mental toughness, the next most important thing. And if I'm going to expect our student athletes to do that, I better do my darndest to do it myself. And I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think you got to be flexible. And no one else cares about your problems as much as you do. So just got to move on. And I think we're all better at that sometimes than others. But I think that's my job, and I think that's an important piece that college athletics teaches you. Life's not fair, so make the most of it, do your best, and enjoy it as you can.
Well, you've handled it better than just about most. I mean, trust me, way better than I would. I mean, there's no textbook on how to handle a global pandemic, so you've graded out very well. So I think you deserve a ton of credit for that. And look, this Pac-12 tournament, for whatever it's going to be historic, it'll be emotional, it'll be unique, it'll be a documentary that it'll be talked about 10, 20, 30 years from now. Is that something that you bring up to your team? Is let's go out and make history? Maybe it's the last Pac-12 champion. That gets brought up, or you don't even bring that up?
No, we won't bring that up. Our goal is to play each pitch as well as we can. And I would love for us to win the last Pac-12 game ever, but that is a goal for a new day. And today we just got to find a way to get better at practice tomorrow.
I mentioned the challenging schedule. It's unbelievable when I looked at it. I'm not going to get into all of that because we're short on time, but I will bring up you're going to play in Clearwater, big tournament there. You're going to open in San Diego, which is like when I looked at it, I'm like, looked like a regional field to me more than an opening weekend. But just talk about your philosophy and schedule because you've literally played throughout the country to get games. So just talk about the philosophy and picking out what you did for this year's schedule.
Yeah, I don't know that this year's schedule was intentional with just how hard it is. But I think that anybody thinks that you can be really intentional in that space. Like, obviously, we do our best, but there's a lot of moving pieces. So if you're not hosting the tournament, like, you're not in charge of the tournament, and you can try to bring in the teams that you want to bring in, but there's more moving pieces than I think people believe and understand. And specifically on this side of the country, we just have less teams. We're more spread out. It's just kind of what our geography is. So I think the traveling, it becomes important as far as getting that scheduling. And then also really a lot of our travel really is around just our players' families. So if we have players from the Midwest and the Southeast, like we want to get over there where they can watch their daughters play a little bit closer to home. And that's, so we're gonna travel to do that because recruiting nationally is important to us. And that's important to them. So that's a piece of it. And then I just, I want us to be prepared. And going into last year, I thought we were going to be really good. And I wanted to make sure that we had the strength of schedule that we needed in order to position ourselves to be in a position to host one, if not two rounds of the tournament. And similar vein going into this year, just make sure that we've got the strength of schedule in place to remove any hindrances, let's put it that way, that the committee might have when they're going down the list. But that stuff's really out of our control. And along the way, it just prepares us. And there's nothing like preparation. So.
Well, you'll be prepared, and it'll start in San Diego with a big matchup. San Diego, Coach Newman's told me that game's going to be sold out. They're looking forward to it. What are you looking for? My last question. What are you looking forward to finding out about your team as you get into the season and learn about your team? Maybe you have either a question or two or things that you think are keys for the rest of the year that you're going to find out early.
Well, I think we're going to find out a lot. We're an interesting combination of young and old. And I think with that, there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way as we start. I told you earlier, we have some positions that are still up for grabs, but there's a world in which I could imagine us going freshman at third, sophomore in the first year at her position at short, sophomore in the first year at the school at second, freshman at first. And then either a freshman or a sophomore on the mound. So while a lot of those sophomores have huge experience, we're still going to be really young. So I think that everything that gets thrown at us the first weekend is going to be good for us. Our successes, our challenges, like everything that goes along the way. I just think that there's probably there's a lot of growth there, and figuring out who we are and what our strengths and weaknesses are going to be. So I don't know that I can pinpoint one or two things. I think it's just interesting combination of young and old is the best way that I can put it. But that's exciting. Again, it goes back to that's why college athletics is great. So exciting to kind of see what that looks like.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing it real soon, Coach. That's Jessica Allister, head coach Stanford, here on In the Circle. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us like you always do. You always enjoy talking. I look forward to seeing you in Clearwater. That's right in my backyard, so I'll get to see you there and hopefully warmer weather by then. But thanks for taking the time. I know it's a busy schedule. Good luck, and definitely look forward to seeing you in Clearwater and throughout the year.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Eric. Appreciate it.